reactions will be lukewarm.
Oh, I think so.
On average.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where I am.
Yeah, and it's because of the strength of the narrative for me. I mean, I thought the performances were really good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're watching The Film Fix. I'm Jonathan W. Hickman, and this is Jeff Marker. We were just talking about the Hunter S. Thompson film called The RUM Diary.
Right.
And I think you're more familiar with Hunter S. Thompson than I am, I think.
I am. I have been a long-time fan. It's very hard to commit Hunter Thompson to the screen. It's usually not very successful. And I will say that, The RUM Diary was not a successful novel. It didn't do well when it came out. The critics and the sales didn't do all that well, and for a long time it was just forgotten. In fact, you couldn't get it for a long time. Then they revived it when Hunter Thompson sort of regained popularity a decade and a half ago, and so it's kind of curious that they chose to adapt this at all. And it's been 2 decades since I read the RUM Diary, but as I remember, this movie makes a much more conscious effort to show Hunter Thompson finding his voice than I remembered the book doing. The book, the basic elements, the nuts and bolts of the story are there on screen from the novel, but there isn't this sort of conscious, discovering what his mission as a journalist and a writer is.
Well,
and that's really what the movie is all
and it's
about.
interesting because this might be more of a vehicle for Johnny Depp and for the producers to milk sort of the last vestiges of Depp's alter ego, who is, of course, the alter ego of Hunter S. Thompson, the writer. Because this is a novel, it's somewhat autobiographical, I suppose, but also fictionalized of Hunter S. Thompson's life. Because the main character that Johnny Depp plays is not, in fact, Hunter S. Thompson.
Right.
Even though I don't think that the movie blurs the line, particularly with the denouement right before the credits. So, yes, no, maybe it all happened or it didn't. Maybe it doesn't matter. This isn't Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's much more, the narrative, I think, follows a much more grounded path than, say, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas or the previous attempt, Where the Buffalo Roam, in 1980 with Bill Murray and
which is
Peter Boyle.
A very sloppy, enjoyable mishmash. The RUM Diary wants to be Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas every once in a while, though. And
when it is, it's very funny. I laughed really hard in places. Like I said, coming out of it, I felt like this is a movie that's funny as hell, but it really doesn't go anywhere. And that, I don't know, is as important as the fact that it's funny as hell. Also, it gives us a little of Johnny Depp. I mean, that's what people are wanting to see.
Well, you said it. The character's name is actually Paul Kemp, and the novel itself is based very much on Hunter Thompson's experiences when he was a young, aspiring writer. He did go to Puerto Rico and work there for a while, and so all along the line is very, very blurry. At the same time, the character Paul Kemp is going through there. They keep making comments about how Paul Kemp is developing as a writer, which clearly are really about how Hunter Thompson was developing. And it's interesting because it does have a sort of more firm narrative than Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and yet it's the biggest problem I had with it is it drags quite a bit. They didn't. I guess they wanted to make something that was sort of understated, even a little bit meditative every once in a while, but then it spiked with these rather sort of zany, absurd moments too. I know. And so the tone was kind of
uneven. He had a sideways way of looking at journalism, and at one point he's looking into a tank, and he sort of says that when he's looking into a lobster tank, and he says, "Oh, that explains everything," And the thing about this movie is, at times it reminds me a bit of The Year of Living Dangerously, if you remember that, with Mel Gibson and Sigourney Weaver, and it reminded me a little bit also of all these movies where you go to a developing nation, even though it is Puerto Rico, and you see the social commentary that comes out of that, children living in cars and begging on the streets and all of that. There is this thing that is, in a way, and this is terrible to say, but sort of Hemingway-esque, where he's going to the cockfights in this case. Hemingway, of course, had a fascination with bullfighting, so there is that kind of thing going on, but
there isn't the sort of bravado about all of
There's
that.
not
though.
a bravado,
They're
and there's
kind
no
of,
romance to it.
they're kind of
You know,
exactly.
You know, it's
Yeah.
there's nothing that makes us feel like any of this matters or there's a weight to it. You know, Richard Jenkins plays a character who is
wonderful.
He's wonderful. He's the publisher, and I have to say he has probably some of the most prophetic lines in the film, and they're all front-loaded, where he's telling him all about what Puerto Rico is and what really matters, and sort of giving him the facts of life as a journalist.
You see, the problem with this newspaper, Mr. Kemp, is that I am among many who don't enjoy reading it. We have an ailing circulation, and I just have to look around this building to understand why. Lack of commitment and too much self-indulgence. So what I'm looking for is some enthusiasm, some energy, some fresh blood. And the question that I'm asking myself is how much alcohol is usual in yours?
My fresh blood?
How much do you drink?
I suppose at the upper end of social.
And how, you know, Johnny Depp here is much more idealistic than we have seen the Hunter S. Thompson character in later, I say earlier, but actually in later incarnations that we've seen in the other movies. And it's weird because Johnny Depp is somewhat timeless. He's romancing a woman who's much younger than him in this movie. She's played by Amber Heard.
Amber Heard.
And yet Johnny Depp looks fantastic, and we know he's much older than she is, and yet I think it works. That particular thing, he's smitten with her from the time he sees her. So there's the potential for this to be a romance, and yet it's like everything in this movie. It gets right out there to the edge, and then it just backs away.
Yeah.
And doesn't go anywhere.
Well, and this is maybe the first time I've ever said this, but I don't know that I'm completely happy with Johnny Depp cast in this movie, because the fact is he is supposed to be a rather young journalist, and Johnny Depp takes his shirt off, and I hate to break this to you ladies, but he doesn't look 25 or even 30 anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think
He
it's a
looks
little
good,
incongruous.
but
He's
yeah.
great for his age, and
Yeah.
come on, that guy's gonna look great when he's 90. But that was a little odd to me, his casting. And the reason they get away with this is because Depp just nails Hunter Thompson's mannerisms perfectly. And here, it's not as exaggerated as in Fear and Loathing. It's sort of, you can see the birth of, the slight slurring and everything like that, and the cadence and whatnot. And, so
and he has
gets
a
that
full
very
head
well.
of hair throughout the entire movie, which he
does.
didn't in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So it's
does.
kind of an odd, kind of interesting.
And so this Paul Kemp as an analog for Hunter Thompson, I think he hasn't reached the point of cynicism that you see in a lot of Thompson's writing. But that's giving Thompson a bad rap, because he was only vicious when he felt it was merited, and in a way that was very much a product of his time. He did believe in America, and he still was idealistic to a certain degree throughout his entire life. He still felt that writing matters, which is a kind of idealism in itself.
Right.
And so, they capture
That's
that.
true. They do capture the kind of the beginnings of that, but
They
then
do.
they don't give it anything. They kill his dream in this a bit.
The way
not that I'm,
Yeah.
I think they do. In a
right.
way.
Don't give away too
Yeah.
much. But yeah, it's sort of an equivocal
Spoiler alert.
ending. I guess you can say it like this. I like the social commentary. I like showing it's almost like an origin story for Hunter Thompson.
Well, it's a prequel.
The love story, yeah, it kind of is. Mm-hmm. The love story works quite well at times. And so all the things related to subtext, I was fairly happy with, and it's also rather funny too.
Oh, it's very funny.
But it's the sort of-
I laughed a lot.
Yeah, it's the narrative on which everything is built that is kind of flat.
I want to make a promise to you, the reader. And I don't know if I can fulfill it tomorrow, or even the day after that. But I put the bastards of this world on notice that I do not have their best interests at heart. I will try and speak for my reader. That is my promise. And it will be a voice made of ink and rage.